Hi, Jen. It's Kevin here. Just want to check if you can hear me okay.
Yep, I can hear you just fine. I have a couple people live texting me about the president's speech right now. I tuned in for the first 15 or so minutes just to see what September was going to look like. So, interesting stuff. And we'll get started. I imagine we'll have folks joining us after the president's speech. The president's speech is going to be recorded. This session is going to be recorded too, so folks might be coming in and out. And we will send out the recording to you probably tomorrow morning. So just note that if you are if you want to ask a question and you're not sure that you want it posted in the recording, because the recording might be available widely, throughout Seneca, you can send that question to teaching@senecacollege.ca and you can ask that question privately. Otherwise, you can just pop your questions into the chat box and Kevin and I will stop at regular intervals to answer questions. So I'm Jen Peters. I'm from the library and from Teaching and Learning, and Kevin Pitts is here from Teaching and Learning. And we're going to talk today about H5P. And H5P is just one of the tools available to us to create interactive learning. So we'll go through, talk about H5P a bit, show you some examples of how it's being used at Seneca, and then we'll take you into how to actually create your own H5P content. Okay, so H5P it stands for HTML5 package, and it's just basically the technology, the platform behind it. It's not really important to understand the sort of stuff that's going on behind it. Just know that it's something that will work on multiple platforms. So if you have students that are using Macs and Windows and Linux systems, H5P should work on all those systems and across a variety of browsers and all that sort of thing. It's free open source framework, so H5P has been around for, about 8 to 10 years now. And it's just recently that I found it to start to be really usable and user-friendly. And it's something that the province is starting to invest in a little bit more too. So this is something that's very encouraging for us. We'll hop right into some examples to show you how we've used it here at Seneca. We're just starting to use it. And maybe Kevin, I'll navigate to the page if you want to sort of talk through your couple of examples here.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Jen. eCampus has a studio, and as Jen will probably talk about a little bit later about how to get access, we can put the website into the chat area for you so you can go and take a look at it. But what you'll see, Jen, maybe if you just go to the catalog. Oh, I see you've got one of my examples here. Do you want to just go to the catalog just for a sec? And
sure, yeah.
Yeah. And what you can do is here, there's a number of folks who are signed up for the studio, and anybody with a higher education email address can go on here and create a free account and use it. And a lot of folks are adding different types of activities to the catalog, and you can go and view each of these, whatever one you like, check it out and see if it might be reusable. Or you can also, as Jen will show you in a minute, how you can pull a copy of that yourself down and then maybe use it as a template for the kind of activities that you might be thinking about creating for your courses. So what Jen's done right now is she searched the catalog and found some of the things I've been working on. I'm teaching a math course, and so I found some interesting activities that will allow me to create some quizzes and some interactive elements for my online class. So I'm using question set and image hotspots. So maybe, Jen, if you want to pop into one of those image hotspots, it doesn't really matter which one. And so this is an example of one of the assets that I have. And maybe what I'll do a little bit later on is show you how I'm building my lesson. I start out with a video that I created using one of the many screencasting tools. And I know that we have also a workshop on screencasting. But so I always begin with a little, here's a mini lesson kind of idea. And what I want to supplement that lesson with is some activities that they can, take what they learned in the lesson up and start to apply it. So here's one. This is just an image hotspot activity that's available in H5P. And I've just uploaded a slide image of a number. And so this is an introductory math course, and folks are looking at place value and rounding and that kind of thing. And so in this case, we're looking at the place value of any digit. So let's say I'm looking at the digit 9, and I want to know what is that place value, what is the place, what's the value? So I can click on the question mark, and it pops up with something that says, well, that's the hundredths place, and the value is, it's 9 times 100. So just for those of you familiar with the place value in mathematics, it's just giving that kind of perspective. And so what I'm encouraging students to do here is pick a digit, say the 2, try to figure it out on your own, and then if to confirm that you got the right answer, click on the question mark and it'll tell you what that particular place value is. So that's just the activity. So you can imagine they've watched the video screencast of the MET lesson. They've come to try this little activity. And then, of course, the final thing to do is then go ahead, and if you think you've got it, let's do a little mini quiz and see how you're doing with that particular objective. So I started creating these question sets. So we go to the place value quiz, for example, and they have this tool and activity available in H5P. Jen, I think you started at the very end there. You can probably zip back to the beginning. And so number of questions. So here's just a straightforward multiple choice question. So it says, which digit is in the 10th place for that particular number? And I always find students have difficulty with tenths versus tens, the THS ending versus the S ending. So if they wanted some information about it, you can click any of the I sections there, and it will give you a little hint, So the place value with the word THS is to the right of the decimal place. So 10th place is the digit 2. So Jen, if you want to pick 2, and you can check it, and if you got the right answer, great. Continue on to the next question. And this one is a similar type of question, same process, multiple choice. Go ahead and just pick any one. Doesn't matter, Jen, if it's right or not. Wow, good choice. Then they can go on to the next one. And this one is like a drag and drop question. And I guess it looks like Jen started it again. Actually, Jen, if you look at the bottom, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking for the retry one because we were already goofing around with this before, so that's why my answers are still there.
Okay.
No worries. This is what it would look like if you came to it fresh.
Right, and so they have this option in the question set. You've got multiple choice, you've got drag and drop kind of matching questions, all kinds of stuff. So given those, where the 2 is in the what's place. So if I look at the 2, that's going to be in the thousandths place. So you can just go and pick the options from the left and just kind of drag them over, and you can check. And this is just a self-check. I'm not, obviously in H5P, we're not collecting the grades for any of this. It's not yet integrated with Blackboard, although I know that is an option that may come, but it's not going to be there anytime soon. But so this is just just for students to, on their own, again, watch the video, try the activity, and try the quiz to see how you're doing. And then, of course, then I'd go, okay, let's now do the real assessment as we're going on. So Jen's just doing another one of those drag and drop types of activities. And the last one, I just increased the complexity of the questions as we went along. This one's got a little bit more thinking to do in terms of mixing up the place and the value and finding where the options will go. And, okay, so that's what I can do later on, Jen, is I can show how I've embedded some of these objects in a website kind of to build the lesson, or I think you're going to show them how to embed it into Blackboard as well. Is that right?
Yep, for sure. We can show them all of that.
Okay, so I'll stop there and I'll pass it back over to Jen, who can walk you through the process then of how do we create these things.
So yeah, I just want to show you a couple more examples too. These are 2 examples that I created using that eCampus Studio, and I'm going to show you how to get your free account in the studio too. So in H5P, there's actually about 41 different types of things that you can build. So Kevin showed you the question set, which is like a multiple question quiz. He also showed you the image hotspot, and this is something called the documentation tool. So I use this to walk my students through creating a proposal. So in this, you can see the process is all here. In this, they would come in here and they would type in all of the content for this particular item. And then they'd have to go and look at those 2 documents and come back here and put their information in here. Move to the next step. So imagine drafting an essay thesis or a project plan or you know, a pitch. They could go through a process in here. You can embed videos at this stage too. And so they walk through this process. There's also checkpoints you can put in through this tool. It's actually really neat. And then when you get to the end, you get a button that says, okay, you've entered in all your content for this proposal. Now create a document. So when I go in here now, I can see that my document's created and I can export that. And that will export as like a document that can be opened in Microsoft Word or in Mac Pages, I think it's called. And you can also upload this document through the assignment submission tool on Blackboard. So imagine if your students were going through a project proposal, they used this tool to draft it, then they exported it and uploaded it through that assignment submission tool. That's kind of a workflow that I was thinking of for this particular course. And another example, and this one I think is probably one of the most complex but also most exciting examples in H5P, and this is called the course presentation. And I don't think that really accurately reflects what it is. So I'll show you an example of my course presentation, then I'm going to show you an example of another course presentation. So this is like slides like you would get in PowerPoint. You've got slide 1, which just has a picture and some text on it, and then some more text. And then we start getting into activities. So I've got a video on one side from YouTube that they're going to watch, and then they're going to do their reflection in the box on the left-hand side. And then they're going to go through and review another video and then do their reflection on the left-hand side. And you can embed quizzes in here. You can do interactive videos in here if you'd like to. You can embed a lot of different content in here. This is where they're going out and looking at, different models and coming back here and putting in the reflection and more reflection. There's a lot of reflection in this module. And then they have to draft a teaching philosophy, etc., and then a proposal. I'll just skip through some of these. And then they have sort of their check mark, their summary for this particular module. This has a little bit of information about what their next step is to submit that to me. On this page, this is where they can click on Export Text. So this is where any of those text boxes that I typed into, it will export it into a document that they will submit to me through the assignment submission tool. So it kind of functions in the same way, that documentation tool, this course presentation tool. But this course presentation, they can actually go through and do different quizzes and different text entry things. So that's course presentation. I wanted to show you at the bottom of our list right here, there's a full list of examples at H5P's home page. So there's kind of a parent page. The company that started it all is called h5p.org. And they have a really great list of examples and tutorials that you can access from here. So there's that course presentation that I just showed you. And as I scroll down, you can see all the different content types available to you. So you can use all of these different interactive type things to either do formative assessments, or you can just use it to mock up text. So if you just wanted to break up some text and make things easier for students to read, you could use something like the accordion. And the accordion, you just put a bit of content into these boxes that open and collapse. So if you have a module on Blackboard where you have a lot of terms that you need to identify, then you can come here and grab this file and reuse it and use it for all of your terms. If we go back to the main page, I'll keep scrolling down and you can see there's that documentation tool where they worked through creating a proposal. There's that find multiple hotspots. That's what Kevin used for his place value, where you had to click on the little question marks to see what place that number was in. And we've got drag and drop quizzes. There's also, keep scrolling down, multiple choice, memory games, question sets. So that's where you have that quiz with a bunch of different types of questions in it. I'll actually show you what that looks like. So every time you click on one of the examples, it gives you one to look at. So you can see we've got a multiple choice here. We can go to the next one. We've got a nice drag and drop one here that we can see. I'm not doing very well with the berries. And then another multiple choice, and then you can finish. So you can kind of mix and match the different types of quiz questions in that one. Interactive video, this is where you can grab a video from YouTube or upload your own video, and then you can embed questions and different things throughout the video. So as you play the video, you're not going to hear the volume that's going on, but as I get to these little dots down here, something's going to happen. So a quiz pops up as I'm playing the video, and I can come here and I can check, and then it just continues on. And you can see it's going to get to the next dot here. That means something's going to happen. Yeah, so just some text pops up to highlight something that I'm looking at in the video. Oh, sorry, that was a drag and droppy, or highlight the ingredients. Oh, that's a new one. I haven't tried that one. So this is the thing about the format types in H5P. Because there's so many different ones, I haven't tried all of these. You just kind of have to go and pick one that is going to suit your needs that you think. Interactive video is used pretty heavily. Course presentation, I'll show you what theirs looks like. So I showed you the one where I had the videos embedded and then some text entry where the students would do reflection. This is the same content type here. So I click through and I can answer questions and get them wrong. Oh, I got that one right. And then I can go on to the next slide, and now I've got fill in the blanks here. So you can imagine having a little bit of text and a little bit of content, maybe having a video from YouTube embedded that they watch, and then doing a little activity. And then going through again, having a bit more content, and then having an activity. So it's that kind of keeping students engaged in what you're trying to teach. And you can take this course presentation and embed it right into Blackboard. So they don't have to come to the external websites to actually access it. Actually, I'll show you that right now just because I've talked about it. At the bottom of each H5P, unless the author turns these off, these are on by default. So I can do a couple of different things with these links down here. There's reuse, rights of use, and embed. So if I just wanted to use this straight from the H5P website, I could click on embed, and I could get this code here. And this code is quite long. It's not just what's in the screen right here. So if you double click this, it should highlight that whole code. And then when you go over to Blackboard, if I go into my course documents, I can embed this just like I can embed anything that has that kind of embed code. I would go to build content and then item. And maybe I would call this week 2 berries. Then I would use this text box to enter in that embed code, but I can't just paste it into the center here. I have to open up the HTML code box, which is here. If you can't see your HTML box, you might have to expand your options here. So if I click on HTML, you're probably not going to see the box that pops up. It's just a blank box, and I'm just pasting in that embed code that I saved from the other site, and I'll click Update. So when I click Submit, scroll all the way down my page here, I've got that nice module embedded right into Blackboard. And I can go through, and students can each do this. They would go through, do all the activities, and learn the content. You can see up here, I've got one embedded from Linda Facchini in Teaching and Learning. She uses this in one of the faculty classes she teaches. So again, this is that documentation tool that I showed you before, where she has faculty students, the students in her class are faculty. They go through and they form their teams, and then they create their team contract, and then they work through, the activity that she has them work on. So there's lots of different ways to use the content in here. And that's one thing to point out, is that if it's published online somewhere, so maybe on the eCampus catalog or on the H5P website, like here, the examples that they have, if the author makes it available, you can reuse these. So the interface in H5P is kind of meh. I'm not a big fan of how to create the actual H5P. It's very a little bit bland, so it's a bit tricky to wrap your head around what you have to click on. So I really do like to start with an existing H5P file already so that I kind of know what to expect if I put things in certain places. So if I go to reuse on this one, or if I go to any of the ones on the eCampus website, I'll just click on the first one here and see if the author has allowed it. Yeah, she's allowed it here. So I've got the reuse button here. You can see that I can either copy the content, so I could create a new H5P and just copy the content into it, or I could download the H5P. So this will download the entire thing for me. Just save it onto my computer. And now I have that file, I can go start to create based on this. So if I wanted to do something similar to this, but tweak it a little bit, maybe I wanted to add additional questions in, maybe I wanted to do something a little bit different, I could just tweak it instead of starting from complete scratch. So before we get into that demo, let's have a look at some of the questions that are here. Let's see, I think Kevin's been answering the questions.
I'll just, a couple have come up a little bit, Jen, and one is around keeping track of what students have submitted for quizzes or those kinds of things. Is there a suggestion, because it's not integrated with Blackboard, how do we know what students did?
Yeah, and it's definitely not something that should be used for sort of formal assessment. It's not something that you should be using for graded assignments. We don't have that ability to plug it into Blackboard. Some of the format types, they do have the ability for students to output a document with all their stuff. So course presentation, documentation tool, they can actually output stuff that they've typed in and then submit that to us through Blackboard. You can't really track who does, like when you're doing a quiz, you can't really track what their results are. It's more for just self-assessment, formative assessment, maybe in using Collaborate Ultra, maybe you have one open and everybody's kind of working on it. So it's definitely not something that's to use for graded assignments at this point. I know ITS is investigating that kind of connection with Blackboard, but I know it's incredibly expensive. And because we have so many students, it would just be a massive amount of money.
Another question, Jen, is folks want to know if PowerPoint can be uploaded into the presentation tool.
It can't be imported like it can be in some other tools. You could save your PowerPoint as image files. So when you go to save it, you can output each slide as an image file and then use those images in the course presentation and just, put an image on each slide. Let me hop over here. You put an image on each slide as the background, and then you can pop in a quiz on top of it. But yeah, it doesn't do that sort of automatic ingesting and converting that some other tools do. Any other?
Yeah, I think that's about it for questions at this stage, Jen.
Okay. So let's talk about creating now. I'm going to hop over to eCampus and talk a little bit more about this. This is something that just got started at the end of March or middle of March, beginning of March, and eCampusOntario created this H5P Studio environment for all higher ed educators in Ontario. So if you have a college university email address in Ontario, you can come here and create an account. All you have to do to create an account is you'll have a sort of a register button over here and you can register for an account. When you come in, you'll get this general catalog here, and these are all educators in Ontario, which is very cool. It's nice to see that what other folks are working on. So we've got Fleming, we've got people from University of Windsor, we've got some folks from York University, and so this really is sort of the Ontario catalog of H5P. If you click on Dashboard, this will show you ones that you've personally created, and not necessarily are they publicly available, but they are all the ones that you're sort of working on. And then over in your account, you have My Profile. And these are ones that you've personally associated with yourself. So these are ones that you're very proud of. You want people to see them and see it as an example of your work. But just general ones that you want to be made available publicly, those you can add to the catalog and then share them with other educators in Ontario. So I'll show you how to do all that stuff. First things first, let's click on Create. in Create, you're going to see this editor, and this H5P editor is very standard. You will see it in this studio. You'll also see this editor in a bunch of other tools that you might have access to. So H5P can be integrated into a bunch of different content management systems like Moodle and Drupal and WordPress and Pressbooks. So you might not have heard of any of those things, and that's fine. But if you do work with any of those things within your programs or within your professional life, have a look and see if you can access H5P through those things. So you can start from scratch. You can just go in and start creating a question set right away. If you click on the content type, you can get a content demo. And this actually takes you back to that h5p.org site, that kind of mother site or father site for the company. And then you can just click on Use if you want to start building right away. But like I said before, it might be easier to start with something that's existing already. So I saved that file for the course presentation to my computer. Now I can go to Upload here in the middle of the page, and I can say Upload a file. So you can do this with any H5P file that you find wherever on the internet that you are. I'm not sure if this one's it. May 4th? No, that's a different day. Let's try, we've got accordion, so it's highlighting all my H5Ps here. Go to all my files and see if I can find an H5P. Sorry, my computer I think is getting angry that I'm using it so much these days. All right, let's try this interactive content, see what we get. So I've uploaded it. I can say Use right away. I just want to highlight down here. Remember those 3 buttons I showed to you, the Reuse, Rights of Use, and Embed buttons? You can turn them off if you want to. So some faculty, they don't want to share their stuff. They don't want other people to be able to embed them. They just want to create something and put it online, and that's it. And that's fine. You can do that like that. Or you can enable that, and maybe you just don't want people to be able to reuse your content. So you can deselect that one particular one. Or maybe you don't want them to be able to embed it. You can deselect that one. I usually leave them all checked because I like to share my work, and I like it when other people share their work. So that's always useful. So I've got my H5P file there, and I say Use. So this looks like it's a question set. So this must have been a question set that I saved a couple days ago. And I can scroll down, and I see, yeah, these are all a bunch of different types of quiz questions. Multiple choice. We've got dragging and dropping text, dragging and dropping text. Scrolling up here, I just have to give it a new title. So whatever I want to title it. I'm just going to call it the cat quiz because I don't know what content's in it. And then you just choose the subject area over here. Maybe I'll pick Earth and the Environment. I'm not a huge fan of these subject areas, but these are ones that eCampusOntario uses in their open text library, so we're kind of stuck with them. And we can scroll down and put a nice description in here. We can also put additional keywords. So if there are keywords that you would like to add to make it findable by people, so maybe there's some sort of professional jargon that you'd like to add into the keywords to say, you know, people might be searching by that. Now the options down here, work in progress is selected by default. This means it's not going to appear in the catalog, in that main catalog. So if you never want your stuff to appear in the main catalog, then just always leave it as a work in progress and nobody else will see it. Or you can say show in catalog and deselect work in progress if you want to share it with the rest of Ontario. And if you want to put it with your profile, because you're super proud of it, you can say show in profile and it'll add to your profile too. I'm going to keep it as a work in progress because this is just for testing. So you can see what, I don't know if you can see what I mean about it being a very bland sort of interface. So it's a lot of text. It's a lot of, like, it's not very modular. It's not very modern. That's why I like to load in something that's created already, because then I can go, oh, okay, so this is what this means and that's what that means. When you start getting into things like course presentation, you'll notice that, oh, what does this mean? How does this go? Where's going on here? So it's good to start from scratch just when you're starting to play around with it. I'll click on Save just to show you. So it gives me my object here. It's been created. It's a work in progress, so it's not going to be in the catalog. And if I want to edit it, I can just click on Edit. It'll bring me back into that editing screen. If I don't want to embed it, and I don't want to sort of bring it over to Blackboard, I can just link students directly to this link up here, and they can access it from there. And so they can just do it within this browser window. Now I'll show you what, let me go to my dashboard. I'm going to show you what that course presentation looks like back in behind the scenes. So I'll click on this one here. This is that module I put together about effective technology use. So this is what behind the scenes looks like in a course presentation. It's a little bit like PowerPoint, where you've got slides. You can add slides and duplicate slides and change slide backgrounds, to sort of create a template. You can move slides around. On the actual screens themselves, you can add things in. So let me just add another slide just so you can see this. So I'll add in a blank slide. So we've got text that we can add in here. Do that. So we've got some text here. We can sort of move that around if we'd like to. That. You can make that a link. Oops, sorry. You can make it a link. You can add in images onto the slide. You can add in shapes too. So if you wanted to add different shapes and construct different things, you can do that. And you can see the interface is it's a little bit clunky. I'll just delete this for now. Now we can embed videos. So we can upload our own videos. We can embed them from YouTube. We can put in anchors, which means we can do a little bit of branching. So we could say, if you choose this, go to slide 3. If you choose that, go to slide 5, that kind of thing. We can embed audio. You can add in fill in the blanks quizzes. You can add in a single choice set, so just like a single question, multiple choice set, true and false questions, drag and drop questions, summary slide. You can also do drag the text, mark the words, dialogue cards, continuous text, and exportable text area. So that's if you want them to be able to export text from it. Remember when I had the videos on one side and the text on the other side where they had to type in their reflection? That's the exportable text area. And tables and an interactive video. So you can take different content types from within H5P, take those that you've created and embed them in the course presentation. So it does take a little bit of getting used to. So if you start from one that I've created or one that somebody else has created on eCampus, or even the one from h5p.org, then you can start to get a feel for where things appear when you make changes. I'm not going to say that it's really simple. It's not as simple as Adobe Spark. It's not as simple as doing something that has that very modern interface. This is a little bit of work. But once you master the content type, you can create some really cool stuff. So I will cancel out of there because I don't want to edit mine. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Should we stop and address some questions?
Hi, Jen. Yeah, there's a question about YouTube videos and how do you stop and start them? And also for a synchronous class, is it possible to do it here with a synchronous class to show an H5P video?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we are, let's say we are doing this for a synchronous class, and maybe I might go full screen for that. I could be doing my presentation, my lecture for students, and you won't hear the sound coming through, but if you use something like Big Blue Button, we could make that work a little bit better. You just click on play and pause, just like you normally would with a YouTube video. And then this exportable text area makes more sense if students are going through it on their own, and then they could type in their things here. Although they could always follow along with you and type in their own boxes, because none of the boxes are connected. Everyone typing into a box, it's their own box. There's nothing kind of in behind collecting the data from them. So yeah, you just click on the start and stop, just like I did with the interactive video too. Yeah.
Great. And the other question was around what's the difference between H5P org and eCampus Studio H5P?
H5P org is sort of the main site where you can go and learn about H5P. You can see the examples from H5P. You can also get some great tutorials for every single content type. So they've got a content author guide here. So H5P is really the worldwide site for H5P. It's the parent company, it's the home base for it. If you actually want to create H5Ps though, then you want to come to the one that Ontario has set up for you. So this is sort of our ability to create, to work with H5Ps and to share them too. You're not going to get that on H5P. And even if you create a free account on H5P, let me see if I can log in with my credentials here. One other thing it will say to you is you can try it out and you can, play around with H5P here. But it tells you that be aware that all test content on this site is publicly available, so they're not locking it down for you at all. And there's no guarantee that your content will stay here. So if they choose to kind of clear out their content, then there's no guarantee that you will have access to your content. Whereas with eCampusOntario, this is an Ontario tool that's been invested in, and if some year down the road they have to close down the studio, they will give you the time to come and to get copies of your stuff and to download it. And Seneca would have some sort of process in place for you to move it to another place where you can work with H5P. H5P exists outside of this particular studio. It's just a type of content. Can we access H5P template on eCampus? Yeah, so if you go to any of these content pieces, you can come here and you can download the templates for this content. There's no sort of one template. You just go to one that looks like something that you'd like to reuse and edit, like musculoskeletal system abbreviations. And you can click on reuse and reuse it. So there's no app that you can download where you can store your projects locally. Well, if you have your own installation of WordPress on a personal server, you can download H5P to that. If you use Seneca's Pressbooks, so Seneca has a copy of Pressbooks, and this is a way to publish online books at Seneca. We have some faculty that are using this for textbooks. So I'll show you how they're using that. So this is a textbook that's used in EAC 594 right now. So this is used by thousands of students at Seneca. And it's an online textbook, and it's free. And it has a ton of H5P content throughout. So I'll show you what the back end looks like there. If we go to the back end of the book, you can see the H5P tab down in the lower left-hand corner. If I click on that, you can see all the H5P that's been created by the Seneca faculty that works on this book. So she has saved all of her H5P in this book specifically. She's not using the eCampus Studio at all. And yeah, if you want to transfer any of this over to eCampus, you can, no problem. If you go into one of these guys, you can click on reuse again, and get that nice H5P file. So, and that's what I did personally. I had some H5Ps that were in a Pressbook. This was before eCampus created their studio. So I just went in and downloaded the H5P and moved it over to the eCampus Studio so that all of my stuff is sort of located in that central place.
Jen, there's a question about having students create H5P activities. How can we do that?
That's a good question. Do students have access to H5P Studio?
I don't know.
I know for sure students have access to Pressbooks. So and I've worked with some faculty who are using Pressbooks to as a project with their students. So students will come into Pressbooks, they'll activate their account, and then they'll create a lab manual for their class, or they'll create a guide or a study guide for their class. And then in that book, they can add those H5P activities. I'll show you what one looks like in context too, because they're just so useful. Let me just find the book here. Sorry, just ignore all this. Okay, so this is a different Pressbooks on a different server. So this is an online textbook, and this is where folks have embedded that H5P content. So this is a pre-check before you get into the content for the course. You can come in here and answer a number of questions, do a check, and then you go in and you start reading your textbook, and you read your textbook and just scrolling down to find the next H5P. Scroll down. There we go. Then we have our next H5P. So it's sort of sprinkled throughout the textbook to encourage a little bit of interactivity and some knowledge check. With students, they could create their nice study guide in here for their particular course, and then they could come up with activities, H5P activities. Think of how great that is for them to go over the content and actually create an activity out of it. It's certainly reinforcing the content in their minds. As well, you can come to this book and grade it. So you could say, okay, this is a great study guide. I really like the H5P that you created here. You don't need to request an account for Pressbooks. All you need to do is just visit pressbooks.senecacollege.ca, and I will sign out just so you can see what it looks like when you go to it fresh. Hopefully the single sign-on doesn't sign me back in. And you can either click on sign in. It might say request an account, but you don't need to. If you sign in, it takes you to that single sign-on. And I'll likely do some Pressbooks webinars in May, I'm thinking, or May, June, and just so folks can see how that's used. I did a couple weeks ago. Could we transfer control so that students can give presentations on H5P? So yeah, do you mean in like Collaborate Ultra, can you transfer control? So I wasn't sure, but it depends if the students created an H5P. You could transfer control on Collaborate Ultra to them, make them a presenter or a moderator, and then they could present from it. Or you can do like Kevin's done, where he's actually embedded his H5P on a website. So Kevin, do you want to take control of sharing and then show that how to embed it onto a website, and then everybody can access a web page?
Yeah, sure. Give me a sec. I'll take over the sharing. And whoops. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen. Jen, can you see my screen okay?
Yep, I can see your screen.
So I'm on the eCampus page right there. I just want to make sure we're in the right one. So what I did is I went to Google, and Google has Google Sites, which is an easy-to-use web page creator or website creator. And so I'm putting all my content on here as another option. One of the things that I know I'm a big proponent of, and Jen is as well, is we like Creative Commons. So you'll notice at the bottom we've got a Creative Commons license for this site. So anybody here can use it for non-commercial purposes. And that was one thing on the, if I go back to the, whoops, it keeps blocking me there. Hang on one second. I'll go back to, whoops, there we go. You'll notice that we've got some licenses to the side, and H5P allows you to integrate a license. So for example, this project management trade-offs one, it's Creative Commons and it's attribution non-commercial use. You'll see that on there. Okay, so I just wanted to point that part out. So I've got this website here, and I'm just starting to build it for my math course. So the first one is I've got a page about place values. If I click on that, it opens up the place value part. And then what I do is, as I mentioned before, I've got it started in kind of, let's take a look at place value of whole numbers and decimals. And I've started with a video. So this is a video I created using a screencasting application and then uploaded to YouTube. So they start by watching that particular video. Then I come down and say, well, let's then try a hands-on activity. And here you go. This is that place value activity. So they can come in and experiment with figuring out where the different places and values are. And at the end of this activity, I come down and then there's this knowledge check. Go and check how you're doing with this particular knowledge. So this is that quiz that Jen was showing you earlier on. And so I've got those embedded in there. So if I was to look at how do I do that in this particular thing, I would come back to my, and just bear with me a second because WebEx tries to cover up my tabs as I'm doing this, so it's kind of annoying, but that's okay. We'll come back to here. Just Jen, you can still see my eCampus Studio, okay? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go, and I'm just going to go into my account here, go to my dashboard. Okay, and a couple of things to show you here. If I go, let's say I've got this rounding quiz that I now want to put in there. I just come down to get the embed code that Jen showed you here. So I click on embed code. I can double click in here, copy that. I'm just going to use the Control-C key. I come back out to my area here. I'm just going to escape out of this is presentation mode. I'm back into just regular building mode for this particular web page. And let's go to my rounding page. And I want to add this mini lesson. I've already added it, but I'll just show you down here. If I wanted to add something else in here, I can just simply go in here and I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll just edit this part. Give me 1 second. Yep, I'm just going to click over here. It says embed an object, and I can pick the embed code. I just Control-V it, and you can see that's the big long script that it's generated by any embed code. Pretty much does that. I'll go next, and I'll say here it is, and just insert that, and now it's inserted into my page, ready to go, and I could add some additional text above it, all those kinds of things. So that's how you would do a simple embed into another option like using a Google Sites web page builder. And so I can imagine. Yeah.
There was a question whether you could replicate this same setup, but in a Blackboard.
Yes, you can, absolutely. So I think you showed that earlier. So if I wanted to do this, I mean, I could go to Blackboard, and maybe I've got a course here. Here it is. This is the one I'm going to be teaching here. If I go to my course documents, perhaps, and I want to build, some content. In this case, I can build an item, or I tell you what I can do. Let's take a look at. I wonder if I started to build this part. Yeah, I could go in here and say, okay, I'm going to build an item and have them work on this little rounding quiz. Okay, try the rounding quiz. Come down here to the HTML page. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see the pop-up here, but it's the same one that Jen showed.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, and then I just copy that into the HTML code, the embed code, update that. I would probably give it a little bit more explanation, all those kinds of things, but just submit. And when I do that, here it is. Here's my rounding quiz already in there. It does a nice job of managing how big the screen size is and resizing based on what you've got options for. So I've got it now into Blackboard instead of on that web page. So it gives you some options there and really a lot of flexibility. And again, just to keep in mind that the goal of these activities is for students that are working asynchronously for the most part. They're watching a video, it's trying this activity, trying the quiz, and then we would come together for a more formal type of assessment when they're ready. So I would then build in something I want to keep track of. So maybe in the assignments I would add now a test using Blackboard and then test their knowledge on that kind of thing. All right. Hope that, is there any other questions there, Jen, about?
No, I think that's it for now.
Can I show one more thing if that's okay?
For sure.
I'm going to go back over to, back here and go here. All right, I just wanted to show let's say that you are working on something. I'm in my dashboard here. Let's say, and this is what I did here. I created this place value quiz first. So what I can do is rather than start from scratch to build the rounding quiz, what I did is I went over to this and I edited this. And what you can do is once you've created one type, you can do what's called copy. So over here, Jen showed the import option, but now you've got, if it's your own activity, you can copy and make a duplicate of it and then work from that rather than starting from scratch. So if I click copy, okay, I've got the copy done. Okay, then I'm just going to cancel out of that because I don't want to affect the place value quiz. But now what I can do is go up to create here. And when I come down to create, let's say I want to do a question set. So I go down and it always shows you the most recent activities that you've been working on, which is kind of nice. So I click on the question set here. All right. And then I got up here called paste and replace. So I click on this and say, do you want to replace what you've got with that copy? So I say, sure. And now I'm not starting from scratch. Okay. I'm coming up here and it's got all my questions that I had for place value, all my images that I added, everything else. And I can just then go and just change this question type in here. I can go and edit the question and, change it to represent what's there. So that's another way that you can just not having to start from scratch, make a time saver, that sort of stuff. I'll cancel that because I've already done it, but I just wanted to point that out. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show there. Any other questions? Or Jen, do you want to take over sharing again and finish off with what you wanted to do?
I think that was all that I needed to show. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we've missed. My big thing is sort of advice on where to get started is don't try all 41 types all at once. Actually, I will share. There is something else I wanted to show.
Okay, I'll hand back sharing to you.
Steal that control. So, don't start with all 41 types all at once. And I wanted to mention about accessibility. So H5P is very committed to accessibility, and they actually have a page where you can track the accessibility levels of the different content types. And they're very clear and very transparent about this. So you can see for the different content types that some allow for great accessibility, and they have the tools for you to be able to add those in. So you can add alt text, and you can add descriptive titles and captioning and things like that. So you can see here the OKs are the ones that have that functionality. Not okay, obviously we probably want to avoid those until they can get them to be okay, unless we offer alternate formats for students that are requesting those. So if Kevin really wanted to use the Find Multiple Hotspots Place Finder, we can see that the accessibility of it's not great. So that's not a problem. He just have to offer an alternate format of it to students that required it. And this is something that happens in Adobe Spark too. Adobe Spark, the Spark Pages doesn't have great accessibility. Well, that's no problem. You just need to offer an alternate format that is accessible. And that would be a PDF that could be read by a screen reader. So this is a great little site to come to and sort of monitor what they're doing with it, and know that if you use a particular type that's not okay, then you just have to make something alternate available to students upon request. So let me pull up the chat here and see if there's other instructions. Oh, good. I was answering your question as you were asking it. And as a summary, are there other tools which provide the same functionality, and why would I use this one? Advantages, disadvantages. There's one called, is it ProProfs, Kevin? Is it something like that? ProProfs? Let me pull it up here.
I'm not sure.
Let me see if this is it. Yes, so this is ProProfs. You can come in here and you can do different things like that. So you can create quizzes and different types of training. We don't have access to this, so we don't have the professional account of this, I guess. You can go in and do some things for free. And that's the one thing that I like about eCampusOntario setting up this studio for us, is that it gives us the ability to come in here and easily create things and have a central location to share them. I like that it's H5P. It's not Flash-based. It's not going to disappear next December. It's something that'll work on most platforms and across devices. I don't like that it doesn't connect into Blackboard. So I don't like that you have to use the Blackboard quizzes for things that you want to appear in Grade Center, and then use this for sort of formative assessments. So I might use this more just for activities and sort of engaging type of things instead of using it for assessments.
I think the big bonus for this, there are other tools out there that could do like there's Quizlet, for example, that does quizzes, but it's does only that one thing. eCamp, all these activities come together, and it's kind of like a one-stop shop for a number of activities. I'm sure there are many other tools out there that might do a better job of certain types of things, and whatever you're familiar with, absolutely continue with that. I think the big bonus is the sharing and the licensing. I think what they're trying to do here is say, I don't have to create everything for myself. Maybe there's some things that have already been created that I can either copy and reuse, or I could just borrow and use it already created. I don't have, you're curating content as opposed to having to create all your content. So I think that's a big advantage, and especially given now I think we have to share, and getting this kind of notion around open content for education, if you're a believer in that, I think this is a real advantage for these types of tools.
And I'm just pointing out now the rights of use button that's in the middle there. That's something that you can designate in your H5P. Anywhere where you see this little metadata tag, you can go in and enter information about this particular item. So metadata is just information about information, and you can choose your license here. So for stuff that we create in teaching and learning in the library, we often use this attribution non-commercial, which means you're more than welcome to use this for educational purposes for free. You don't need to ask my permission, but you're not allowed to use it for commercial purposes. So that's something I can designate right out of the gate. I can, edit the author information that's here. I can add myself. If Kevin worked on this with me, I can add him in here too. And so you can add that layer of information to it so that people know that when you're sharing it, they know who created it and how they're allowed to use it. And that's something that I very much appreciate being part of the copyright team. There was something else I was going to mention. I like, just to echo what Kevin said about using an open source tool like H5P. ProProfs is fun, and you can do some fun things in here, but this is definitely not open source. So using H5P, contributing back feedback to the company, that helps them improve. And as they improve, it's going to improve your experience too. But there's tons of tools out there for you to use, and if H5P doesn't meet that, then you don't have to use it, definitely, for sure. And I did want to mention too, before we end this, is that Mentimeter has launched at Seneca, so we did subscribe to this commercial tool called Mentimeter, and you can sign up for an account just at this link right here. We'll have this for at least a year. I'll put it there. And what Mentimeter is sort of that engagement, polling, quizzing, things like that you can do with your students. I'll show you what Mentimeter sort of looks like in the background. I'm not an expert at it, not at all. I've just used it in some classes where you can go in and you can do fun things like, how is everyone feeling today? And you can integrate these GIFs right in here. It's part of the search in Mentimeter, which is kind of fun. And then folks all visit this sort of code in this website and enter this code, and then you can all do polling together. You can do quizzing competitions. So it's sort of like quizzes, and it's Kahoot, and it's a couple of different things packaged into one. So yeah, sign up for your account, try it out. We have it for a year. Might as well play with it while we have it. Asynchronous classes. Mentimeter is typically something I think that's used for live classes, so it's for live communication. I don't know if it would be great for asynchronous, but H5P.
Sorry? Yeah, sorry, Jen, you can. There's actually an option in Mentimeter, and I think we'll probably have some workshops on Mentimeter coming up as well, but there is an option to actually can run it as kind of a standalone presentation, if you like, but most of the time it's used for synchronous activity.
Okay, great. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to dig into it, but I'm sure there's lots to learn. Okay, so the recording will be sent out sometime tomorrow morning. And if you have any follow-up questions, just email teaching@senecacollege.ca. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining us.
Bye for now.